So for the 2018 Libertarian National Committee Chair Candidates Forum, we have 3 candidates here today, and we're going to have each one of them give introductory remarks. You don't feel like you need to take 10 minutes, please, but if you do need that long, I will cut you off at 10 minutes. But you don't have to take that much time. And then we're going to open the floor for questions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond, and I'll change the order unless somebody, only one wants to respond or something, but the order will be changed up every time, and I will repeat the question because we don't have a microphone for the audience. So if I don't understand the question or repeat it back correctly, then correct me and we'll get the question answered by each of the candidates. So in a somewhat random order that I chose, we're going to start with Joshua Smith, who is the founder of Think Liberty. He is from Washington State, and he is on the governing board of the Washington State Libertarian Party. And he is a U.S. military veteran, as I am, and he is a candidate for chairman of the Libertarian National Committee. Joshua Smith, if you will please take that microphone. You've got up to 10 minutes.
Thank you. It's on now. Can everybody hear me? Yes. Awesome. Thank you, Libertarians of California, for having me at your state convention. It's beautiful. It's is it? Huh? Stand up. Oh, okay. All right.
Would you like to stand here?
Yeah, we can do that. All right. Wasting my time here, Larry. Because I care about you. Okay, I'll go back. How you guys doing, California? You guys hanging in there? Everyone having a good time? Sweet. Sweet. So this is my 14th state convention in the last 16 weeks. It has been wild, to say the least. I have set out on this goal and this mission to shake every single member of this party's hand. I think that's really important for any chairman candidate to do, to listen to the members of this party and figure out where they want to see the party headed, what kind of things they fear, the goals they have for the party. And so it's been really, really interesting and very eye-opening and humbling, to say the least. A little bit about my background. I was in the United States Navy. I think I got out in about 2005. At the time, I was very, very jaded on the current political spectrum. I didn't see a home for me in the Republicans or the Democrats. I was very, very anti-war. I'm still, to this day, very, very anti-war. I think, pushing a message that's anti-war from the Libertarian Party is very important for us. We're the only party that actually has that as one of our principles. So it was about 2007, maybe, I was watching TV and I saw Ron Paul. And I'm 35 years old now. A lot of people in my generation came to Liberty through the way of Ron Paul. It's a very, very common story that you'll hear on a lot of interviews of just about anybody in the party that's under the age of 50. So I started to rally behind Ron Paul. I thought Ron Paul's great. He was speaking exactly the way I felt. This anti-foreign interventionism, this end the Fed, audit the Fed, stop locking people up for victimless crimes. But I was still a registered Republican, and I stayed a registered Republican for a while. And I want to say it was around 2007, 2008, and then around 2010, I found out about the Libertarian Party. And I found a party that spoke to who I was and the ideals that I held and the principles that I kept sacred to myself. And so I joined the party here in California, actually. I'm from Oakland originally. I live in the Pacific Northwest now. But I was never directed to how to use my activism. And so I stayed with the party for about 3 months, and I left the party and continued my own brand of activism. Since then, like Jim said, I have started a publication that's very successful. We've gained over 18,000 followers in less than a year. I think that's a noble cause to spread liberty, whether you're in the party or not. So about 2 years ago, I moved to Washington. I found the Libertarian Party of Washington. I found a group of activists who were working very, very, very hard. They were lobbying at the Capitol. They were, getting arrested for protesting. They were doing all these things that I thought were noble causes to spread liberty in a state that is very anti-liberty. And so I joined my local party there. I became the communications manager I think it was at my first meeting with the local party down at, the microbrewery with 8 guys. I went to my first state convention in Washington that same year. I became the Region 5 representative there. I took over a region that starts about 5 minutes away from Portland, Oregon. And if you guys have ever been to Portland, you know they're not very liberty-minded. I have 5 counties. I had 1 county affiliate when I started. Now I have 2 new county affiliates, and I found one that was overlooked by the region rep prior to me and have since got them back into the fold with the state party. And our state party's rocking. I think we signed up, 25 new members at our state convention 2 months ago, and it's been a beautiful thing. Back in September, I decided that there was a lot of people in this party that had some issues with leadership. I don't think people felt like national leadership was reflecting their activism. So I decided to step up and run. Back in September, I put out an intent to run statement, thinking it'd be a good challenge because competition breeds success, and we know that as libertarians. So since then, I've created a platform. It's changed. It's changed with the meeting of people over 14 different states. My platform is pretty simple. I want to use the resources we have now in a more efficient manner. I think we don't have to reinvent the wheel. My platform consists of grassroots activism. I think if we can get back to worrying about the state and local candidates, we can really make a difference there as opposed to just worrying about federal candidates all the time. I want to do candidate spotlights. I think that's really, really important. I think we can run candidate spotlights from the National Media Hub. We have over 800,000 followers there. I really want to upgrade our technology. I think that's really, really important. This is the technological age. We should have a podcast. I think we should do video blogs. I think we should do omni-channel marketing campaigns that are seamless across all platforms. I think media is really important. I've spoken in a lot of interviews about the fact that I think we've dropped the ball in the media several times as a national leadership team. I watched things like Alabama, where we had the Ron Bishop campaign. He was a write-in candidate running against Roy Moore. I'm sure you're all familiar with Roy Moore. The entire nation's media had descended on the state of Alabama, and we put out a meme and a reminder to vote. We must do better in the media. So I've proposed that we have a media hit squad, 4 people, four corners of the country, ready to descend on media opportunities. I think that's really, really important. Stuff like that, stuff like the Mark Wicks campaign in Montana. These special elections where we have nothing else to focus on. I think it's really, really important that we get there, we get on the steps of the Capitol, and we let the people of these states know that we have another option. They don't have to just vote red or blue. I put a lot of focus on candidates throughout my whole campaign. I'm currently setting up a fundraiser for ballot access in Alabama in June. Like I said in the beginning, I think grassroots is really, really important. We started this organization as a ground-up organization, and they did that for a reason, because they knew we weren't going to come out of the gate winning federal elections. A lot of us know that we're still not going to do that. I just compiled some data within the last week, and even with the current trajectory that we have now, we won't be a majority until 2074. That's a long time. A lot of us won't be here anymore. I'm not okay with that. So I think we start focusing on the local and state elections again. We really start getting people into office there. We can really affect change, and we can move the liberty needle and public policy into a more free direction. I'm also really big on the crypto community. Many of you that may follow the LNC business list, this last weekend, we showed up to the LNC meeting in Colorado. We pitched a blockchain committee that was adopted into the LNC. The crypto community has billions of dollars wrapped up in it and millions of people. And those millions of people make up a large percentage of the population in this country that don't vote. But they're already fighting for a libertarian cause, a decentralized currency that's circumventing the federal government. It's a dream for us. And those people need a political home. And so I've been out doing outreach and building coalitions with places like Nexus Earth, Vector Space Systems. These are important businesses for us. This is a privatized space industry. a decentralized currency. These people are already libertarians and they're not in our party. So we have to keep coalition building. We have to bring those people into the party. It's going to change our financial situation drastically. It's going to give us new members and volunteers, new activists, and people ready to fight for our causes. Finally, I want to talk about messaging. The messaging from the National Party has been inconsistent, to say the least. We have one person fighting to inflame everyone and push them out of the party. We have other messengers who are constantly trying to act like the old parties, hoping that it will get us new members from them. Meanwhile, 60% of the population is not voting today. Those are the people we should be reaching out to. And if we keep a consistent, principled message that doesn't pander, but doesn't inflame, I believe we can bring those people over to the party, left and right, all day long. So I believe that it's time for a new vision for this party. I believe it's time for new blood. I think it's time for people who are ready to get to work, roll up their sleeves, and do what they have to get our candidates into office. Otherwise, we're just playing philosophy club. And as much as I love philosophy, I'd like to see a free society in my lifetime. Thank you guys so much, and I'll yield the floor there.
Joshua Smith. Randomly chosen next is Alicia Dearn. She is from Missouri. Many of you, like all three of these people, probably don't need much introduction to this audience, but you probably all remember her from the 2016 National Convention in Orlando, running for office there. So, Alicia, would you please come up, or would you prefer to sit?
No, I'll come up.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I might be from Missouri, but I'm actually originally a Californian, born and raised here. I know there's not too many of us from San Diego. If you'd asked me a couple of months ago if I would ever run for the LNC, I would have told you no way. that was insane. And I'll tell you why. A couple days ago, somebody posted on my Facebook the following comment. Anybody who's qualified for chair is also smart enough to not run for chair. And you know, I had a response to that. I said, you know, I don't have this great burning desire to be in a position of power. I don't care for power. That's probably why I'm a libertarian. I want to manage myself, and I want everybody else to manage their own lives. So why did I run for chair? Well, when I make a decision, I have a little process that I follow. And it starts with, what is my ultimate goal? And I had to think about that. My ultimate goal and my calling in life is to help humankind, whether it's here in California, in the United States, or even my local community, or even the world. My goal is to help humankind get closer to freedom. It is a moral imperative to me that people have freedom. Freedom is what gives everybody prosperity. It gives them self-actualization. It gives us peace. So when I asked myself, should I run for chair, I said, will that help me manage my goal towards getting everybody towards more freedom? And after doing some extensive thinking about it and writing down what it is I could do and how I could help, I decided this might be a place that would fit my skill set. So I'd like to back up a little bit and tell you a little bit about me. So I became active in the Libertarian Party with the Gary Johnson campaign in 2012, but I've always been a libertarian. I've always been a libertarian probably because my gut instinct, even as a young person, was that I don't want other people telling me what to do. And that as far as I can tell, whenever the government is involved, it makes life harder for everybody. I've had experiences in my life, starting from my youth, where the government always puts barriers in my success. So I was in the military. I didn't complete my military career because of health issues, but I was in the military and immediately came to realize that I did not like war and I did not like the United States foreign policy. After that, I had to get permission, because my ex-husband was also in the military, I had to get permission to get married. I had to get permission to live off the base. And then he was in the military and I wasn't. I wanted to go to law school and I had to get permission for that. So immediately I don't like authority as a young person. I worked my way through college. I did not take student loans. I worked my way through. And I started off practicing law at a large law firm. And it was there in the practice of law that I discovered that the law really is set up for people with money. Okay, I know that a lot of people say that, but when you're 20, I was 25 at the time I started practicing law, I thought that the system was maybe a little more fair than it is. And I quickly discovered that if you're a person who cannot afford a lawyer, or if you're a person who doesn't have as deep a pocket as the other side for litigation, you're going to get run over by the courts. And then I discovered that if you're a person who's an entrepreneur, if you're a person who wants to start a business, you're going to get regulated into poverty. So in 2008, I left my big firm law practice and I started my own law practice. And I've been on my own since. And during that time, I got to go through every experience that every small business owner goes through. I have had to deal with state regulators. I've had to deal with tax issues. I've had to deal with employee issues, and it's really bad in California, by the way. Most of my work comes from California employers who are being taxed and regulated out of business. So many times I have people calling me and telling me, I want to do this, why can't I do this? I want to invent something, I want to employ people, I want to have the benefit, the freedom to bargain with people how I want to bargain with them. And I have to tell them, well, California law doesn't allow that. And then now a lot of times federal law doesn't allow that. So we have people who want to add to our economy, who want to express their creativity and express their economic freedom, and they cannot because of government regulation constantly yoking them. So after I started my own practice, I had some pretty good success. I quickly grew my firm into a 10-person firm. And then in 2011, I got diagnosed with a cancerous tumor. I was very sick. As a result of becoming sick, I lost most of my business for a period of time. I lost health care, and it impoverished me. And every time I turned for resources, I was blocked again by the government. This, by the way, is why I moved to Missouri, and now I'm a Missourian. I moved to Missouri because I could not afford to live in California and work part-time and pay for my health care and all the things that I need to do to survive. There were just too many burdens and too many barriers. So I went to Missouri. I bought a piece of property that was basically a brick shell, no electricity, no water, and I moved in. And I rebuilt that property. Thank you. It was illegal for me to live in that property because, again, the government tries to tell you what to do, and it always hurts poor people when they do that. But you know what? I did it anyway. And we lived there, and I rebuilt my law practice as I got healthier. And I continued to do that. And over the period of next several years, I grew my law practice back up again. In the last couple of years, actually last year, I got sick again, had to scale it back, and I just was overwhelmed by the increasing burdens on employers in California. So you know what? I had to leave California for the most part. I have a practice here, but I've mostly shut it down because that's what's happening. We have literally hundreds of thousands of businesses are leaving the state of California as a result of the economic conditions here. Nobody can afford housing. Nobody can afford to start a business. The minimum wages are too high. The tax burdens are too high, and they're just trying to pass more and more taxes. So as somebody who's been through a cycle of poverty, who's been through healthcare issues, I'm extremely frustrated by the government. And I see it in my neighbors, I see it in my fellow man, that they're all struggling in the same way. When I first was faced with this in 2011, I thought to myself, well, I could give up. I could go and live quietly, or I could stand up and fight for what I believe in. I believe that when you're down, the best way to get out of being down is to serve and help other people. And so that's what I did in 2011. I actually volunteered for Gary Johnson's campaign. I volunteered in Missouri. I became the Missouri director. Then I became the Midwest director, where we had the largest volunteer organization in the campaign. I had hundreds of people, volunteers working with me. We were the most successful with fundraising, and we had really a stellar campaign out there. In the beginning of, I would say, I guess probably spring of 2012, maybe summer 2012, we started getting sued, the campaign started getting sued for ballot access. I had no experience with ballot access before that, but I'm the token lawyer on the campaign, so I said, oh, well, I'll help out. Exactly how this happened, I was in Missouri. The campaign got sued in Iowa, the LP in Iowa got sued. And they got notice on a Friday night for a hearing on Monday morning. And of course, we could not find a lawyer who could help. So campaign called me and I said, well, it's like a 6-hour drive, I'll go. Don't know anything about ballot access, but I'll go. So I learned on the drive there in the hotels, and I showed up on Monday morning at the Secretary of State's office, and the Republican Party had flown in 3 ballot access lawyers, election lawyers from Washington, D.C. in very expensive suits, and they walked in, and they literally walked in, and I said, hi, I'm Gary Johnson's lawyer, and they wouldn't shake my hand, and the lead lawyer looked at me and went, huh. Yeah, sorry. So in short, I kicked his ass on radio. And I learned very quickly how many barriers are in place. I then started helping with the debate access, and I've just been involved ever since. I'll sum up very quickly because I'm running out of time. I have, over the years, served on probably half a dozen boards, both nonprofit and for-profit companies. I built my own company. I have made millions of dollars in sales as a lawyer, run my own business. I've had it bigger, I've had it smaller. I have an experience and skill set related to managing and organizing both volunteers and for-profit endeavors, as well as the strategic mindset of somebody who litigates and understands the problems that are facing the Libertarian Party. So the reason I'm running for chair is that I think that my skill set will play well in an organizational position like this, and that I have something to offer the party to help us grow to the next level during these very unprecedented times politically. Thank you.
Great. All right. For the third candidate for your consideration is Nicholas Sarwark, who hopefully you've all already heard of because he has, as you know, been serving as the chair of the LNC for the last, I guess, about 3.5 years now. He was elected in 2014, re-elected in 2016, and going for re-election again, which might be a record for Libertarian National Committee chairs. I know I didn't make it to a third run, but I managed 2. But anyway, he is also a candidate for mayor of Phoenix, Arizona, where he hails from. So, Nicholas, would you prefer here? Or
Almost 4 years ago in Columbus, I asked the assembled delegates in convention to make me the least important person in the Libertarian Party. And it was one of the greatest honors of my life that they did that. I say the least important person because every person out there who runs for office, every person who goes out to a fair or a gun show, every person who tells their neighbor that there's some other way to do politics that isn't about people controlling other people's lives, but it's about empowering individuals to have control over their own lives, to pursue happiness in their own way. They are what make this party. And the chair is just a face on TV. Just a guy who runs meetings, just somebody who tries to hold together a group of people that are, by their fundamentally flawed and crooked nature as iconoclasts and freedom lovers, difficult to keep together. Sometimes more difficult than others. It has been an honor for the last nearly 4 years to be chair of the party And we have changed things that had been systematic to this endeavor, to the point that we had become so accustomed to them that we didn't try to fix them anymore. Things like regression to the mean of presidential vote totals that stayed plus or minus 1%, often minus. We had become complacent with revenue numbers that stayed flat for well over a decade. We had not sought to grow anymore. We had sought to appease our enemies in order to get approval from the very people that we were fighting. We had lost our way, and I think we found it again. 242 years ago in this country, we revolted. We revolted with the idea that individuals have rights over their own lives that are not the property of governments. They're not the property of kings. They're not the property of masters. They are ours. And that is a fundamentally revolutionary idea in human history. Self-ownership is new. It is the next level of human development. You are not somebody else's. You are yourself. You are your own. And 42 years ago in this country, we had another revolution where when one of the old parties decided that that was no longer the case, that we could tell you how much you could pay for goods and services, how much you could pay your employees, that we could take from you the gold that you had. There was another group of revolutionaries that said, nope, not me. And a tiny little band said, we're just going to stand up against it. And the Libertarian Party was formed. We are formed as a fundamentally different kind of political party. We are the only part of the liberty movement that engages in electoral politics. We are the only ones who get called by the reporters, who get to stand on the debate stage, who get to call out Republicans and Democrats that want to control our lives and present alternative solutions for the people to hear. This is the only vehicle for that. There are many think tanks and many charities, many nonprofits, many lobbyists, many consultants, but this is the only electoral vehicle for individual freedom in the United States of America. That is a precious resource, and we have an opportunity to grow to levels that we have never seen. We do not know what is possible from here. But what we do know is over the last 4 years, the National Party has stopped being that thing over there that takes our money, that doesn't ever do anything for us, and has a full-time press secretary now. He's sitting actually in the back there. We have 2 full-time people working on candidate recruitment and candidate support, trying to get an army of over 2,000 candidates around the country in the 2018 midterm elections so that we can take advantage of a country that is tired of Republicans and Democrats. We have a full-time head of development who is working to get revenue numbers to the point where we're able to make more impact in politics. We just had the most successful first quarter in revenue numbers that this party's had since 2004. We have over 800 candidates already recruited nationwide toward that 2,000 candidate goal. We are doing things that are requiring us to get outside of this room and get outside of the people who already have been here for so long and kept the lights on, and they all deserve a round of applause. Because they got us to the point where we can move beyond the level that we were at and go out and free this country. I want a world set free in my lifetime. I want nothing more and nothing less. And I will not stop until we get it. And I don't think we're there yet. And so I would like it if in New Orleans, in June, you would once again make me the least important person in the Libertarian Party. Thank you.
Okay, so what we're going to do is have questions now from the audience. I'll call on you. Please keep it short and simple enough that even a past, current, or former chair will understand. I will repeat the question for the recording, and then we'll choose somebody to answer. You, sir, here.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Now, Gary Johnson got the most votes in history as a Libertarian candidate, but I think most in this room think he could have done better. So what went wrong from each of you in the Gary Johnson campaign? And if you're chairman in 2020, how will you fix it? From each of you.
Question briefly is what went wrong in 2016 with the presidential campaign, and how would you fix it? Does anybody have a preference for going first on that? Then I'll. Nick, why don't you go?
Yeah, sure.
Pass the microphone there, please.
So the question
Is it? Is it?
Good at everything. I'm not good at many things. The question was, what went wrong and what would we do to fix it in 2020? The answer is lots of things went wrong. Presidential campaigns are terribly messy. Mistakes were made. The biggest mistake that I would publicly talk about not approving of was setting goals that were outside the control of the campaign. There's a lot that we can't do as libertarians. We don't control whether or not the Commission on Presidential Debates invites our candidates up. We don't control whether or not enough people vote for us to take office. We control what effort we put in. And so if you define success in your campaign as 15% of the vote, or 15% of the poll numbers to get on the debate stage, or 5% of the vote to hit federal matching funds, or some other metric that is outside the control of the campaign, you burn out your activist base. You get people on board to try and do the thing, and they put forth effort, and that effort is not related to the metric. And so they get disappointed. You also create an opportunity for your opponents to sap your will to continue, because you tell them, we want 15% in the polls so we can be in the debates. And they all take their army of consultants and their millions of dollars and go, if we stop them from doing that, we can make them quit. Don't give your opponents that opportunity. In 2020, I don't think I would do anything different than I did in 2016, because the National Party doesn't control the presidential campaign. And while there are some people who have suggested the National Party should have a stronger control over the presidential campaigns, I would suggest that you don't really want that, even if you think you want that.
Time. Alicia, you're next.
So in my opinion, the problems with the 2016 campaign were operational. It's the same problems I ran into in the 2012 campaign as the Midwest director of the campaign. There's bottleneck at the top that prevented people from really getting resources and having the freedom to do their best activist work. I'd like to see the next campaign that we have not have quite that stranglehold at the top. But again, I also agree with Nick that the LNC does not control what the campaign does. I mean, you can certainly encourage and you can do what you can to campaign and get on media, but really what we need to be doing is right now we need to be looking at continuing to recruit the best possible candidates and the best possible talent, because as we improve our professionalism and our talent base, we will necessarily get better results. Thank you.
Thanks. Joshua?
Yeah, I believe there's a good mix to be found between both of their statements. You, the delegates, are the ones who pick our presidential nominee. You pick our vice presidential nominee as well. I think if we kept our goal really low in 2016, trying to hit 5%, I think we should have shot for 20. I think we should have shot for 15 at least. You know, we kind of pigeonhole ourselves as libertarians into let's take the lowest high number we can get. And I don't think that's the goal we should be shooting for. We should be shooting for a much higher goal. Make sure our activists know that we want a much higher goal than 5%. We don't just want to be included in the debates. We want to win. At the end of the day, that's what we're doing here. We want to win. So it's really on the delegates. Like they said, we, as chair, we have no authority to pick the presidential nominee. You know, we can talk about who we like and who we don't like all day, but at the end of the day, it's on you guys to pick better candidates. It's on you guys to recruit better candidates locally and statewide that can become presidential nominees. And so, yeah, I think at the end of the day, we should be shooting for a higher goal, but also picking better candidates. And I would help, you know, enable our local and state candidates as much as possible. So,
Thank you,
guys.
Joshua. Okay, so looking for hands. You, sir, back there. That's you, yeah, turning around.
I just wanted to get kind of a better sense of your background. I don't know a lot about you, especially the new candidates. So who is your kind of favorite libertarian influence and why?
Who is your favorite influence and why? Why don't you start, Joshua, since you were last first?
Hello again. Currently, my favorite libertarian influence is going to be Mr. Sharp over there. I'm definitely from the school of Larry Sharp. Yeah. I'm definitely from the school of Larry Sharp and Michael Pickens and Alex Merced. I believe that we can unify the party through a positive message. I'm also, you know, ideologically a staunch libertarian. I came to the party and I came to the philosophy through people like F.A. Hayek and Murray Rothbard and Milton Friedman and David Bose. And so this is the stuff that brought me to the philosophy. But today, the hardest working activists that I can see are people like Larry Sharp and Michael Pickens. And I want to emulate them, but I also, like Nick said, I want to be the chair. So you guys can all forget who I am and we can just build a base for our candidates. So yeah, definitely if I had to pick one, it's Larry Sharp.
Alicia, you get the second chance.
You know, I don't like this question because I'm way too much of an individual to like just say I have one person that I like, that I model after. I've never been that way, not in my career, not in law, and also not in libertarianism. I take my ideas from, there's a whole past that we have of philosophers and economists and current activists, all who have great ideas. I can tell you on the Nolan chart, like I'm at the apex. So I've just very independently libertarian thought. But when it comes to this position as chair, I really don't want to focus on what caucus or what school of thought everybody's from, and that's the right one that I agree with. I don't really care how you got to Liberty. I just want you to be there, and I want more people to be there.
Thanks you, Alicia. Nicholas?
So my first influence was probably either my father or Ernie Hancock at Maricopa County meetings back when I was a kid. And I read David Bergland's Libertarianism in One Lesson, and it's a good book for an introduction to what this is all about. And then from there, you talk to more and more people, and you talk to more and more people who go and try and implement this stuff in the real world. Or you talk to people who have had experiences where the government has taken something from them, whether it's their property or their liberty, or in the case of somebody like a Peter McWilliams, their life, with basically killing him. And those stories are the ones that probably influenced me the most. It was things like my time 5 years as a public defender, watching the state actually cage other human beings, often for crimes that are not really crimes. That's why. That's the why. That's the real influence. It's helping people live better lives and getting the state off of their back so that they can pursue happiness more than any particular philosopher or author. My experience is that there's something good to be said about every libertarian, and there's something to be said about why every libertarian is not really a libertarian, if that's the sort of game you like to play. But I have more important things to do.
Thanks. All right, thank you all three. All right, so you've been patient, sir, Mr. George.
What's your personal view on the role of the LNC?
What's your view on the role of the LNC? Alicia, since you're the first this time.
I think that the LNC sits in a position of being able to model leadership as well as support the local affiliate. So I'm one of those libertarians who believes that our fastest way to growth and power is really through the ground up. Can you hear? Sorry. So every state, every county, every campaign has different needs and different wants from the LNC, and so I don't believe that the LNC should force itself on local affiliates, but I think that it has a bully pulpit with the media that it can use. It has the ability to share information and share resources, and I think the LNC is really here to stand as a model of leadership and an organizational tool for the rest of the party to help us channel our efforts in the best way possible.
Nicholas, would you go next, please? Thank you.
The role of the LNC is to hold us all together. The LNC is the place where when you go to national convention as delegates from your state, you get to vote to put people on that board to make sure that your voice is heard. I have probably the distinction of being the only person in this party who has ever stood on stage at a national convention and nominated Star Child to be a member of the LNC, and in the same convention nominated Wayne Allen Root to be a member of the LNC. I thought it was true confession time, so that's what I'm doing. And the reason is that both of those voices are important to have at the table. Neither of them should be in charge. No offense. But all of them should be heard, because it's when people feel respected and heard that we don't fall apart and we don't break apart. It's when people are shut out, or there are purges or purity tests or internal fights, that we become a smaller and smaller team that spends most of our time looking for the knives sticking out of our back and less of our time trying to roll back the state.
Thank you. Joshua?
I have a two-part answer for this question. One is much like what Nick was saying. I believe that the LNC should exist to give a voice to our hardest working activists at the national level. And on top of that, I believe that the LNC should only exist to create a base for our candidates, activists, and state and local leaders. Full stop. Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, that was a good short answer. So we have time for one more question. So let's see. Larry, you've been standing prominently, so I couldn't miss you. You're next.
2 years after, in 2020, when your term is done, what will have to be true for you to believe you've been successful?
Let's see. Who's going to go first for the last one? I guess, Nicholas, you're going to go first. And if you'll repeat the question, please.
So what I heard was, in 2 years from this summer, when your term is done, what will have to be true for you to feel that you've been successful? We will be at a national convention with candidates seeking our presidential nomination who are not even in the heads of anyone in this room right now, because we have been so successful in the 2018 midterm elections that we attract more people to join the Libertarian Party than ever before. We will have kept the trajectory of having December ballot access that's more and more states and spending less and less of our money getting to the starting line. We will have successfully increased year-over-year revenues. We will have successfully increased the number of state affiliates that are having packed conventions like California has, and those are the things that I expect to be true.
Alicia?
At a minimum, we need to have libertarians who've actually been elected to office as libertarians. I'm actually next week going to help with Laura Epke's campaign, because I think that this is a key moment for us to prove that somebody who changes over to the Libertarian Party is re-electable as a libertarian, because that's going to give courage to donors and talented politicians to join this party. So I want to see that foremost, and then of course more media, being able to run candidates that are viable against the two major parties which are falling apart. That would be a bonus, but let's get somebody elected as a libertarian.
I have lots of answers to this question. I'll start with the lowest common. I believe that I've set a lot of big goals in public. I think that we can raise $4 million in 2019. We raised $2.2 million in 2016. I think we can double that in 2019 with the correct crowd of people fundraising. I believe we can get several candidates elected. I think the goal of 2,000 candidates was a high goal, and it's a respectable goal. But I think we need to look at least getting 50 candidates elected. I think if we go into 2020 and we have had 50 candidates elected, that'll show really good on LNC leadership, but also the activists and the hardworking people of this party. Probably one of the most important things to me for success as chair of this party would be to not see our hardworking activists like Larry Sharp, like Patrick McKnight, leave the LNC for what they see as fundamental problems that we can't get past. As leadership in this party, sometimes you have to say no more, and I believe that doing that at some point in the last 2 years may have kept those people from leaving the party and taking their resources and going home. So I think if we can keep people involved, we can keep people feeling like they're part of the process, we can increase our numbers over the next 2 years, and we can get a presidential election that gets us 10% of the vote, I'll feel like I've accomplished a lot. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Well, please join me in thanking 3 fine libertarians for stepping forward to offer themselves as chair of the Libertarian National Committee to us in the convention in New Orleans. And I'll see you all there in New Orleans in June.